Hey guys, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to be going over some Git basics for a sole developer. And this, of course, is not everything there is to learn about Git, but it's everything that I typically use as a sole developer. And when I say sole developer, I mean I'm the only developer working on a project. And it's not a multi-team collaboratory project. It's a single developer creating projects. So I'm just going to show you all the things that I use in different scenarios and things like that. Things I wish I knew when I was first starting out and wanted to use Git. So first, I'm going to preface this by saying that when you're first starting to learn Git, make sure you always save a backup folder of your project before you try to push it up to Git and before you try to make changes and make updates and delete it and add another repo. Make sure you always have a backup folder. Too many times where it's happened to me where I've accidentally overwritten the files that I had, and at the time I didn't know they were retrievable. I later found out that you can retrieve previous updates to your GitHub account, but if you delete a repo, there's a lot of mysterious things that go on with Git that can get very advanced and very tricky very quickly and can be difficult to restore old files. So always make sure to just, before you push your project up, just make a duplicate of it just in case something goes wrong. I've always found that can help in very tight situations. Okay, so to get started, I'm just going to go ahead and show you the documentation, git-scm.com/docs. All the information I'm about to show you or tell you is going to be found here, as well as a lot more information. So obviously if I went over everything in here, this would be an 8 to 10 hour course. This is just going to be a quick what you need to know kind of video. So in order to use Git, you have to have a place where your code is stored, such as a repo. GitHub is a place to create those repos. So I'm in the channel's GitHub profile, and you can see it's github.com/webdevforfresh. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new repo. So I'm going to go to repositories, new, and we're going to call this git test or git test, like that, testing git commands. And we're going to leave this as public. You can have it at private if you have a paid account or if you have a student account. And then you can initialize this with a README. So this essentially just creates a document that tells people what this project is all about and how to start the project on their own file. Usually if I'm starting a project from scratch, I will initialize this with a README. And depending on the kind of file it is, or the kind of project it is, you're going to want to add a git ignore. So for a lot of JavaScript application programs such as Vue.js or React or Angular or anything like that, they all run on a node. So if you just type in node here, it'll automatically add the git ignore file to your repo. So what the git ignore does is it essentially tells the computer to ignore a certain list of files or directories from being pushed up to your repo. This is especially useful for when you have confidential data, such as server access or any kind of credentials to any APIs that you don't want exposed to the public. You're going to want to use your git ignore to ignore those folders. This also will ignore any packages. So for example, on a Node.js project, you're going to have your node modules folder, which is actually a huge folder which contains all of your packages for your file. It's not necessary to store them on the repo, since you can just type in npm install and it'll automatically install all the right packages. So adding this here will create the git ignore. For now, I'm going to put none just because I'm going to add it manually in a second. And then for add a license, I generally always just put the MIT license, which basically means it's open sourced and free to use any way you want. You can go into any of these. If you know anything about licensing, software licensing, go for it. I don't really know too much about it. I just always know to do the MIT license. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create the repo. And I spelled commands wrong. Whatever. So Now, what you're going to do is you're going to click this green button that says clone or download. And we're just going to copy this full link. So Command C that. And we're going to open up our terminal. And we are going to open up our folder. So this is where I want to bring in the project or the repo onto this web dev profesh folder. So what I'm going to do first is in my terminal, I'm going to cd, and I'm just going to drag the, or wait, hold on, and put a space. I'm going to drag the folder over, enter, and that'll place me right in this directory. Okay, so now there's two ways to initiate a project. You can either do, we'll do it right now. We can say git clone, and then paste in this URL, and this will automatically create the folder, and it's going to be the same thing as the repo. So git test. This is not always what you want to do, because sometimes you already have a folder where you want to bring the project in. So let's just say, git test 2. Let's say we want to bring all of the files into this folder without putting it in its own folder. So what we're going to do, we're going to say cd git test 2, and we're going to say git init to initialize the package or the folder, and that'll automatically put this .git folder, which has all of our settings. You pretty much never need to go into this file, which is why it's a hidden file, but it's there if you absolutely need to. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to say git remote add origin, and then we're going to paste in the link. And what this does is this is considered the remote URL right here, and it adds it as the branch origin on your local machine. So if we hit enter, all right, so now if we do git pull origin master, what this says is pull all of the code from into the origin branch, which we just created on our local machine, and you're going to pull from the master branch, which is the default standard branch that is created. If we hit enter, we'll see the project just got pulled in right here. These are the only two files, so it only pulled these two files. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this, and we'll go into the git test. So we're going to cd into this folder. Okay. Where'd I go? There we go. So now let's go ahead and let's just say we make some changes to this project, or we actually add a project. So for now, I'm just going to say sudo, or let's just say nano index.html, and we'll just say HTML copy project git test, just a simple page. Hit Control X to exit, yes to save, right to index, and then that just created a file real quick. You could of course just open it up in your text editor and add a file. I'm just going to try to keep the text editor out of this video. Okay, so now that we have the index, let's go ahead and update our GitHub. Now typically when you add a single file, you don't want to update your GitHub repo every single addition or every single change, micro change you make. You only want to update your GitHub once you make a major update. Not even a major. You can do minor updates, but they need to have accomplished something as a whole. So if you have a bug, you're going to update it once that bug is fixed. So anyways, I'm just going to show you now how you would update your repo from your command line. So we're still in the git test directory right here. And what we need to do is we need to do something called git add, and this is going to add files to your local branch, which is on your computer. So typically what I do is /capital or -A, and what this will do is we'll add all of the changed files from when you originally pulled it until this moment, and it will also update any files that have changed, and it will remove any files that are missing. So if we say git add a, this is going to add index.html into our local repo or our local branch. Now there's a couple other options you can do. If you want to only, for some reason, only update all the files and not add any additional files into your local branch, you can use -u for update. This will not, this right here will not add index.html into our branch because it is a newly added file. Okay. You can also specify a specific file if you only want to add one file. So we could say git add index.html and it'll only add this file. And then another flag you can add, which is this -f or -a, that's called a flag. So another flag you can add is -f. This will override any warnings you get saying that, oh, there's been changes. Are you sure you want to do this? You'll get those kind of errors all the time, and it's pretty common. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just warning you that you're going to override some changes. So make sure you read the warning, make sure it's what you want, and if it is, you can just override that warning with a -f. And this goes for a lot of different commands. So always remember -f is to force whatever you're trying to do. Okay, so we're going to say add -A. I almost always use this for almost any change just because it takes care of everything. Okay, so now that we added it to our local branch, we need to commit this local branch to be ready to be pushed to our repo. So we're going to say git commit, and now we're going to need to add some flags here. So typically, and pretty much what you should almost always use is use the -a flag for all. So it's going to commit everything that we just added into our local branch using this command. And then we're going to add the flag M right after it for the message. So what this does is it actually combines two commands into one. If we say git commit -a, it's going to prompt us for the message we want to send. However, if we just type in M, we can just put the message in quotes right here. So we'll say initial init. And this is typically the first init, or the first push that you always do, is called initial init. Now, whenever you make a change, whenever you make an update, this is where you want to put what that update did. That way, further, when you actually, you can see right here in the background, it says committed GitHub initial commit. So when we actually created the project, it created it and it named that commit, or it used the message initial commit. So now I'm going to say initial init, or it should be commit, because this is the initialization of the repo. So, and it says one file change, one insertion, and it says created mode 10644 index.html. So now that we have committed the change, we need to push it up into our repo. So we're going to say git push origin master. Push it again. All right, so now it's going to ask me again for my username. This time, instead of KG websites, I'm going to put web dev profesh. And I'm going to put in the password. Authentication failed, so I put in the wrong password. Let's see. Web dev profesh. Okay, there we go. All right, so now that we did push it, it says total 3 files were pushed to the repo and it pushed into the master folder. So now if we go back to my GitHub account, and you can see right on the dashboard, you can see the index.html is now in there. Great. All right, so now let's say you have a server that you want to bring all these files into. So typically what you do is you would SSH into your server. You would type in SSH and then your username, Kyle at, and the IP address of your server. And then once you log into your server, you would basically go cd into the folder where you want the files to be brought into. And so to just replicate that process, I'm just going to create a new folder here and call it git test pool. Okay. So let's just pretend we're in the server right now. We're going to cd into the folder where we want to pull our information. So cd git test pull. All right, and now we're going to say git init git remote add, and then we're going to go ahead and get this repo URL, paste that in there. Oh wait, I always do this. I forget to add the origin here. We need to specify the branch that we're going to be adding this to. Okay, and I'm going to say git pull origin master. And now all of our files are in this folder. So now, let's say that we make a change on the server, and then we make a change on the development, and we try to update the server. We're going to get an error, and it's going to basically say, hey, there's changes that haven't been pushed to the server. What do you want to do? So we're going to tackle that problem right now. So we'll go ahead and just, let's see. I guess we will, no text editor. So we'll say nano index.html, and we're just going to add git test new change. All right, and we're going to control X. Yes, we're going to save it. Yes, we're going to override the index.html. So now this is different than what's on the repo. So what you should do at this point is then push this change onto the repo so that you can pull it again in here. But let's just say we forgot to push that change, and so now we're working on our development folder. cd git test, and we'll just say index.html. We make a change in here, and we say git test making all sorts of changes. Now we control X. Yes, we override it. And we are going to push this update to Git. So we're going to say git add dash capital A. We're going to say git commit dash am. We're going to say second update. And we're going to git push origin master. Okay. So now we go back to our server to pull those changes. Cd git test pull, and we say, git pull origin master, and we get this warning or error. The local changes to the following files will be overwritten by merge. Please commit your changes or stash them before you merge. So this is a very common issue I run into a lot. So the easy way to do this is to do what's called a stash. So you're basically going to take all the changes you made in this directory, in this directory wherever you are, and you're going to put them aside. And so that's basically going to take you to the last pull that you made. So we're going to say git dash save. Okay, so now all changes we made are in a stash. So now we should be able to see git pull origin master, and it pulled the file. So now index.html, if we open it up, it's going to have the second change we made, making all sorts of changes, right? So once you have gotten your latest update from your repo, you can go ahead and drop the stash since we no longer need it. Let's see. Additionally, if you want to put that stash back, or if you want to look at your stash, you can check out the documentation for the Git stash for all the possibilities you can do with it. There's a lot, and it can get very confusing very fast, so we're not going to dive too deep into that. So we're just going to say git stash clear. Okay. And now our stash is gone, and we're up to date on all of our folders. Okay, so those are pretty much all of the basic commands that I use on a daily basis. Like I said, there's a lot more that goes on into it, such as adding new branches, switching between branches, merging the two branches, but those are all things that are typically used in a team environment, or if you're hiring someone out to do a different part of the job or something like that, you would want them to use a separate branch. But that is just the basics of everything you need to know about Git and GitHub. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know if you have any questions down below, any kind of problems you run into. You can always Google the error you get, and you will almost always find at least 4 different answers. Try them all before asking me for help or asking anyone else, because odds are someone else had that problem. All right, so if you like the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.